Let's go straight across now to our Washington, D.C. correspondent Simon Marks joining us live on the broadcast. Simon, first up, a number of ways in which we see the divide between the states and the Trump administration only widening, and the issue of funding remains central to those disagreements.
Yeah, absolutely central. I mean, I think we should pause just to reflect on the fact that over the last few minutes, the death toll in the United States has risen above 50,000. That is an extraordinary moment for this country. It obviously raises questions about what happens to the psyche of the United States as that death toll continues spiralling upwards, and what happens to President Donald Trump, who has consistently predicted over the last couple of weeks that ultimately the death toll can be contained to within 60 or 65,000, a target that now looks utterly impractical. On the issue of the states, you have to remember that the issue for them is not just a public health emergency, it is financial. States across the country derive their income in very large measure from things like sales taxes. Every time you go to a grocery shop here, or you buy a piece of equipment, or whatever it is that you purchase, you pay sales tax, and the sales tax goes to the local state. They also, of course, receive property taxes from businesses. Well, in an environment in which people aren't doing very much shopping, lots of shops have been ordered to close, many businesses are going under, so they're not able to pay their property taxes. The state's revenue base has dried up. Suddenly they find themselves on the edge of a fiscal abyss, and this is something that Governor Andrew Cuomo in New York has been urging the federal government to address. Now, Mitch McConnell's proposal that states should just be allowed to go bankrupt, inelegantly articulated though it was a suggestion that perhaps if they went bankrupt, they could then enjoy the protections of bankruptcy in the United States and delay the payments that they have due. But Andrew Cuomo's response to that is, well, he actually called it the dumbest idea he had ever heard, because as he said, the state of New York has to pay its staff. It has to pay people working in state-funded hospitals, for example. It has to pay the staff who are overseeing the state's response to coronavirus and COVID-19. So this is still a real bone of contention between individual states all over the country, not just Democrat states, Republicans too, and the federal government here in Washington.
Right, and speaking of ideas and suggestions, Donald Trump is no stranger to touting unproven theories. I'll just come back to you, Simon, for a quick remark on the latest suggestion that's been made by the American president. Donald Trump first hailed hydroxychloroquine as a miracle drug to treat COVID-19, and now he has proposed another cure. Disinfectants like bleach. You have to listen to this to believe it.
The disinfectant, where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside, or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number of the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me.
The American president wondered if disinfectants could be injected into patients to treat COVID-19. How exactly did he come up with this suggestion? A new research by American scientists shows that bleach could kill the virus on normal surfaces, even when it is embedded in bodily fluids. But experts have called the idea of injecting bleach into human beings bizarre and dangerous. This is not the only bizarre suggestion, in fact, that came up during that briefing. An American official went as far to say that the same research shows that the new coronavirus is quickly destroyed by sunlight. The Homeland Secretary said that scientists have found that ultraviolet rays have a potent impact on the virus. Listen in.
Within the conditions we've tested to date, the virus in droplets of saliva survives best in indoors and dry conditions. The virus does not survive as well in droplets of saliva, and that's important because a lot of testing being done is not necessarily being done, number one, with the COVID-19 virus, and number two, in saliva or respiratory fluids. And thirdly, the virus dies the quickest in the presence of direct sunlight under these conditions. And when you look at that chart, look at the aerosol as you breathe it, You put it in a room, 70 to 75 degrees, 20% humidity, low humidity. It lasts, the half-life is about an hour. But you get outside and it cuts down to a minute and a half. Very significant difference when it gets hit with UV rays.
Let's go back across now to our correspondent Simon Marks. Simon, this paper that the White House officials are quoting has not been released yet, so it makes it difficult for independent experts to comment on how robust the methodology here was. But the use of bleach and to inject the same into patients to treat COVID-19 as a suggestion by the American president has already attracted flack from various quarters. Major disinfectant firms, experts have slammed the move and warned against it.
Yeah, I mean, we've never seen anything like this from behind the podium at the White House. And we do need to say that the manufacturers of bleach and disinfectant here in the United States have moved immediately over the last few hours to issue very, very clear public health warnings, urging people not to do what the president suggested during the course of that briefing. Bleach and disinfectants are not to be consumed or injected by human beings, and the manufacturers of those products are deeply concerned that the president's language was so irresponsible last night that people out there anxious to protect themselves from COVID-19 may actually listen to what he had to say. I mean, we've already seen, and you mentioned it earlier, hydroxychloroquine, this anti-malarial drug that President Trump championed and told people to take. What have you got to lose, he said to people. Well, now there are studies coming back clearly indicating that that anti-malarial drug has no impact whatsoever in terms of fighting coronavirus and COVID-19. There is pressure growing on the White House to try and stop President Trump from acting as America's doctor-in-chief from behind that podium. But, you know, once he gets into that briefing room, he is absolutely his own man. We see these unscripted stream of consciousness exchanges with his officials, including his top public health officials, who are becoming increasingly stressed by the things that he says during the course of these briefings. There's another briefing along in, 6 hours' time? It could all happen again at the White House tonight.
All eyes on that briefing once again, and we will get in further updates from you on that front as well. For now, leaving it there for the moment. Simon Marks, appreciate very much you joining us with those